We've all been there. The washing machine is beyond repair. And all you want to know is which new model you should buy. Well, that's where the Which Just Buy This recommendations come in. Hand-picked recommendations that our product testing experts think you should buy. We've got over 50 products with a Just Buy This recommendation, from dishwashers to TVs, cordless vacuums to fitness trackers. And yes, it can be useful to spend time reading our in-depth reviews, but when you need a quick fix, a Just Buy This recommendation can save the day. To find out which products have our new seal of approval, just head to which.co.uk/justbuythis. That's which.co.uk/justbuythis. And get it right with Which. Herbal and botanical supplements may sound like a natural way to look after your body, but what's the truth about their effectiveness? Let's find out on this podcast from Which. Hello, I'm Rob Lilly-Jones, and this is the final episode of our series looking at the world of vitamins and supplements and helping you live your best life every day. Now, we have been doing some fascinating episodes over the course of this series, covering everything from magnesium to multivitamins to the world of bulkers and fillers and everything else in between. And on the podcast today, we have another fascinating topic to get through. And I'm going to do that with the help of our brilliant guests, who are once again still with me. Firstly, from Which, public health nutritionist, Shefalee Loth.
Hi, Rob.
Great to have you back for the final episode. And she's back again for this final episode. It is the brilliant consultant dietitian and the founder of City Dietitians, Sophie Medlin.
Hi, Rob.
It is lovely to have you both here. Now, today we are talking about herbal and botanical supplements. Now, how do they differ from the other types of vitamins and supplements that we've spoken about in the series so far?
So really, herbal and botanical supplements are the things that sound like herbs and spices or plants. So far we've talked about specific vitamins and minerals like vitamin D and magnesium. We also talked about probiotics. Whereas I guess the botanical and herbal supplements come under a more natural umbrella.
And some of these are very popular, aren't they? I mean, why do we think they're so popular?
I think one of the reasons they become so popular is because they're less regulated, perhaps, than other vitamins and minerals. And so people feel more comfortable making some pretty wild claims about them on social media, etc. So I think it's this sort of space, a bit of a grey area where people can really shout about things that don't really have much evidence behind them.
And we were just having a chat before recording this episode, and there are no authorised health claims, are there, in this space?
No, there aren't. Whereas with vitamins and minerals, for a company to put a health claim on their products, they've got to prove that that health claim is valid. And actually, the process for botanicals hasn't really happened. All these claims have been submitted, but the kind of process has been on hold for nearly 20 years now.
And an on-running theme throughout this series has been the disinformation that we're seeing on social media. I think we've already touched on it. Herbal supplements and botanicals, this is ripe for disinformation.
Totally. I think a great example, and we'll talk more about this later, is mushrooms and medicinal mushrooms and how much hype there's been around them. Everyone's taking them. There's huge brands in the space, but there's very little research and certainly no authorised health claims or health claims that should be being made about them at all.
We have a list. I've got a list. We will run through it. But before we do that, what about any general risks? If you are on social media, you see an influencer talking about something, you think you're going to try something out. I mean, some of the risks can be pretty serious.
They can. And I guess the first thing is, if anyone is claiming that they've got a magic bullet for whatever issue you're suffering from, then it's probably too good to be true. So don't believe the hype. I think with herbal supplements, people do need to be careful. People think they're natural, so there's no harm in taking them. And that absolutely is not the case. People think, oh, well, garlic or turmeric, it's in my food, so what's the harm in taking it in supplement form? But actually, when those products are in supplement form, the active ingredients are in much, much higher doses. There's a lot of evidence that actually shows that these natural herbal supplements can interact with existing medications. So actually, If you're pregnant, if you're taking regular medication, do check with your pharmacist or doctor before starting to take any kind of supplement, whether that be a vitamin, a mineral, or a herbal supplement.
And you mentioned dose, and dose is something, again, that's come up time and time again in this series. I mean, are we paying enough attention to the back of those bottles, to the dosage that is on, these bottles or the box or whatever it is that we're buying? It's a theme that's been on running throughout this series, and I'm not sure we are.
I think it's a difficult thing, particularly with herbals and botanicals, because there's no regulated or research-specific dose that people should be having. And often if you look at the back of the packaging, it will say take between 1 and 4 capsules, and people don't really know how much they should be taking. There's a real concern around these kinds of products in that sometimes people take a whole collection of them in a day, and there are cases of people ending up on intensive care in hospital in general. Typically that would be with liver injuries or kidney injuries. Those are the organs that help to get rid of these sorts of products from your body when you've taken too much of them or when you've taken the wrong things in combination.
Right then, should we get to this list? We've got quite a few to work our way through. We're going to start with one that actually, hands up, I took a couple of these this morning. So echinacea. Is it true that it can help combat cold and flu symptoms, or at least that's what the box that I took my echinacea from this morning told me it would do?
I think in reality there's just not a lot of research that backs that up. What we know from all botanicals, and this will be a theme, is that it's really difficult to take the exact same extract in the exact same potency every time and mimic that in research. And if you think of a medication like paracetamol, for example, it's really easy to get that compound and make it exactly the same every single time. Whereas with something like echinacea, it comes from a plant. So every time you take it, it's been grown in different soil, the dose is slightly different, the actives are slightly different. So it's really hard to get exactly the same thing every time. And that means that when we do research, it's not having the same effect every time, especially when we look at a systematic review which pulls data from all the different research trials. Some will have a positive outcome, some will have a negative outcome. So with echinacea, there just isn't any significant strong research that says, yes, this will definitely make a difference. But some people might find that it makes a difference for them, and that's fine.
I don't know if this is something that either of you will be able to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. When we talk about echinacea, as an example, being grown, and you were mentioning there, Sophie, being grown in different soil, and obviously the conditions are different every time. Out there in the world, do we have like echinacea plantations or echinacea farms, or are they all grown in a lab, or how does that work?
Good question. I don't know the answer for sure. What I do know is that there's varying practices across the industry. So there will be some forms of echinacea, I'm sure, that have been cultivated and now are essentially reproduced in a lab setting, for example, or the active ingredient's been extracted and the active ingredients is the only thing that is continued within products. But there will also be products that are ground up echinacea, which I assume is a plant, and then that's what's in the capsules themselves.
Interesting, really interesting. Yeah, that's something we'll go and have a look into, I'm sure. With all of these that we're going to run through, with all these herbals and botanicals, maybe, is it the case that actually, and I know maybe this is the case with me and echinacea, there's a bit of a placebo effect going on. We think that they're making us better, even though actually maybe the science doesn't say that is the case.
So actually, placebo is a very valid effect, and people do feel better whether they're taking herbal supplements or even vitamins and minerals or any other medications. Often if you've got a cold, you might take some echinacea and then wake up feeling better because actually you're more rested, but you might attribute that feeling better to the tablets. There's no harm in that.
Well, that was going to be my final point on echinacea. Is there any harm in taking echinacea? Should we be taking it at all? Should we not? Is there any dangers there?
As with all supplements and herbals and botanicals, if you are taking any prescription medication, it's really important that you speak to your doctor or pharmacist before you take echinacea. We know it does interact with some medications, so there's a really important one there.
Okay, well, from echinacea then to something that you might put in your curry, turmeric. It's not just something you put in your cooking.
It isn't. There's an active ingredient in turmeric, curcumin, and that has been shown in studies to help with inflammation. Now, again, the studies are of mixed quality, so we can't conclusively say that it helps, and that's why there are no approved health claims. But a lot of people do take curcumin or turmeric supplements to help with inflammation.
And this is, just to clarify, this is different from, you've got a little bottle of turmeric powder in your kitchen. it's different. It's not the same thing.
Absolutely. It would be impossible to get the right doses of curcumin just through cooking.
So that means that we're all wasting our money on things like turmeric lattes, etc. If we're hoping for them to have any sort of medicinal effect, if you enjoy it, fair enough.
But they do taste horrible, though.
I agree.
If you're out there and you like a turmeric latte, that's fine. But live your best life. I won't be having one. Mushroom supplements. There's loads of different kinds, but let's just talk about mushrooms as a whole. What can they help us with, if anything?
Mushroom supplements, we're talking about things like lion's mane and reishi, these medicinal mushrooms that have become hugely popular over the last few years. There's ones to pick you up, there's ones to help you relax, there's ones for immunity, there's ones for everything, right? And I think what's really important to say is that we're nowhere near understanding what the correct dose is, which ones do what, whether that's replicable across different people. These are all relatively new to the market. They will have been used in traditional medicine for a long time, but they're certainly new to the Western market. And as much as I think they're probably harmless for most people most of the time, we just don't know what the right dose is and how much people should be taking and how they're likely to feel when they do take them. So there's just no research at the moment.
And we mentioned it earlier on. I mean, mushrooms is specifically an area that influencers, people on social media really are sort of using to push products that may not be good for us, may not be doing us any good anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess mostly might not be doing anything at all. There's certainly some big brands of gummy mushrooms on the market, which have just such a tiny dose of the active ingredient in them that they're doing nothing at all.
I mean, the idea of a gummy mushroom doesn't sound great at the best of times anyway. We've talked about turmeric already. Obviously, we just talked about mushrooms, all things that we may put in cooking, but as we've said, not the types that you'd put in cooking. Garlic, can this help us?
Well, I think, garlic is a healthy thing for us to be consuming. It can also, in high doses, as you might find in a supplement, have a blood thinning effect. So it can reduce your clotting factors, meaning that you can bleed for longer if you have excess garlic. And that's sort of been extrapolated into lots of different spaces, with people saying it's great for your heart health, great for reducing Alzheimer's risk even, and things like that, which are beyond what is safe in terms of making claims about garlic, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they are very bold claims. I mean, the science to back that up, presumably, is not there.
No, not at all.
And obviously, if you're on blood thinning medications, then you should avoid garlic supplementation because they could make them more effective, essentially.
But that doesn't mean you need to not have garlic in the kitchen. It's just the doses that you'd get from a supplement is unsafe.
Yeah.
And on blood thinning medication, purely, as a question that I'm thinking about now, I mean, I think you mentioned some of them there, Sophie, but the reasons why you would take something that would help thin your blood, because the dangers with that are quite high. Are they around sort of circulation and your heart?
Yeah, exactly. So cardiovascular problems, sometimes it's of benefit for the blood to be slightly thinner than it would be normally, so it doesn't stick to arteries and vessels and things like that and lead to further cardiovascular disease. Right,
next up, an excellent name, St. John's wort. I've heard it mentioned quite a lot when people are talking about things like depression, anxiety. Is that why people are taking this?
Yeah, it's often marketed to menopausal women, perhaps for those reasons. But again, I think Sophie and I are going to sound like broken records here. The evidence, some of it shows that it can have a benefit, but it's not conclusive. And if you are on existing medications, then just be careful and check with your doctor or pharmacist.
I was going to say, if you are already on antidepressants, definitely steer clear. Is that what we're saying?
We need to be careful of that, but also it interacts with the contraceptive pill and other things. So we need to be particularly careful of that one, around women's hormonal health.
And just going back to basics, what is St. John's wort? Is it a plant? What is it?
Yeah, St. John's wort is a plant that has another botanical name that I can't pronounce. And it grows quite commonly actually in England, and you might see it around. It's got pretty yellow flowers and it's quite a common, popular shrub.
As with anything, don't just pick something and then eat it, digest it because you think it's going to benefit you. Please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Please don't.
Right then, this is another quite fun name, and apologies everyone if I mispronounce this. Ashwagandha?
Perfect.
What is it?
Ashwagandha has been used in Ayurvedic, so Indian medicine, for a long time, and it's become popularised in the West, I think, because of the huge shift in the menopause market and this focus on how anxiety can be part of the menopause symptoms. And so I think it's kind of been picked up in that tidal wave of information or misinformation, as it were. And now people are really thinking about ashwagandha as being something that can be super beneficial for anxiety and depression. I would say, again, very limited evidence. But interestingly, with ashwagandha, there is a company who have branded as a very specific type of ashwagandha, and it's called KSM66. So they've got this proprietary type of ashwagandha, they've made it very standardized, and now they're putting that through rigorous research. So that is something that potentially in the future could have a health claim around it, that very specific brand of ashwagandha, but we'll have to see what happens in the near future.
We were touching on that earlier on. That's the issue around things like, echinacea, as we were saying, you can't be sure you're getting the same potency, the same product every single time. So what you just said there, Sophie, that's really interesting. Is that available on the market at the moment?
Yeah, so what will happen is this KSM66 type of ashwagandha will be bought and white labelled by other companies. So you might see that perhaps Boots have got an ashwagandha that has the name KSM66 underneath it, and then you'll know that it's the one that's been as carefully standardised as these things can be.
Very interesting. Okay, so that's one where it's kind of a watch this space on that one, I suppose. And then another fun name, Ginkgo biloba. So Ginkgo biloba.
It's mainly used in place of caffeine as like a stimulant or something can help you focus and concentrate. That's its sort of rumoured benefits, as it were. Again, as with everything else, very limited research, certainly not at the levels that you would expect from a standardised vitamin, for example. But it's an interesting supplement. Some people may find it useful, but again, it can make you feel quite stimulated, so you want to be careful with how much of it you use.
And on that point around caffeine, because I know this is something that, I've suffered from in the past, I've had lots of coffee and then feel a bit anxious, for example. Is that one of the reasons why people would go towards, Ginkgo biloba, because they're thinking, oh, it's more natural, it's an alternative to caffeine?
Yeah, exactly. That's the sort of reason why someone might reach for that kind of thing. But you don't quite know how you'll feel. And I often see Ginkgo biloba in a supplement that's also got things like ashwagandha in it. So you've got almost like an upper and a downer, which to me makes no sense from a formulation perspective.
It's interesting because obviously this is the final episode of the series. We started the series talking about multivitamins. Can you get multivitamins that are based around all of these sort of natural ingredients, natural in inverted commas multivitamins?
You can. There's a company who make what they call food-grown supplements. But again, there's a question mark there about how much they're guaranteeing of things that are in there, which doesn't matter so much if you're taking an A to Z and there's slight difference. But if it's the case that you're taking folic acid because you're trying to get pregnant or you are pregnant, or you're taking iron because you're iron deficient, you really need to be sure about exactly how much is in there. And similarly, I think what we're seeing now is a trend towards multivitamin products also having a load of these botanicals in them. And I'm seeing, again, some uppers, some downers, some for sleep, some for waking up, all sorts of different things in there that to me, as someone who formulates and as a dietitian, don't make any sense to have all of those different things in there. And some of these are the most premium products that are on the shelves in Harrods and elsewhere.
And on this then, I think it's worth reiterating the importance of reading the back of the product you're buying and also understanding what some of the ingredients mean and what's on there.
I think it's about research. I think it's about understanding what you're trying to get out of them and what your expectations are of the product that you're using. Research is hard work for everybody, and you see a brand and you like the packaging and you think, oh, I'm going to go for that. But actually, it is about trying to understand what are you trying to get out of it, and is there enough evidence to say, yes, I'm going to try this? And crucially, is it safe for me based on my health and my medications that I'm taking?
And in this space, so herbal supplements and botanicals, there are some logos, am I right in thinking that you should be looking out for as well, or you can look out for?
There's a THR logo, which shows that the product has been made to certain standards. If you can't find that on a product, then look for a manufacturer that might be registered with the trade body to show that they're complying with standards as well. At which we do a lot of research about what products are available on online marketplaces. And I would say when you're looking in the supplement space, it's better to steer clear of brands that you might not know or recognize, and really try to stick with trusted brands that you can either buy on the high street or that are safe to buy online.
Is there a role for herbalists in all of this as well? Obviously, there are herbalists out there who you can approach and talk to about these kinds of things. Would that be useful for someone who's interested in more natural supplements?
Yeah, great question. A herbalist, a medicinal herbalist, they would call themselves, know way more about this than I would. I think what's important to say is that Shefalee and I both work in Western evidence-based medicine spaces. And so our experience of these things is really limited, whereas a herbalist is working very much in the alternative health space. So important to say that they're working in almost a different language of medicine to what I am. But, there's validity in that. And I think if you find someone that comes from a recommendation and things like that, I think there's no harm in having conversations with these types of people, but also just remembering that if they're making outlandish claims about being able to cure anything or to fix a problem, that should be a real red flag. And what they should really be doing is what we call complementary therapy. So working alongside conventional medicine if you have a medical problem.
All really great advice. And is there anything else that the two of you'd like to leave us with on this one?
I suppose I would say, just carrying on from Sophie's last point about working with a herbalist, for example, but also, and it being complementary, is, don't stop taking existing medication and just move over to a herbal or botanical supplement. Talk to your herbalist about using them in conjunction.
Yes, and if that herbalist or anyone in the alternative therapy space is trying to tell you to stop using conventional medicine or discouraging you from having tests and scans, then that should be another big red flag. And I think, there's a role to play for botanicals and herbal supplements, and people don't always want the strongest medication on the market, but it does need to be in combination with and in conversation with conventional medicine practitioners.
And before we do finish, given that this is the last episode of the series, I think it is worth just touching on some of the things that we've been talking about over these last few episodes, and also the importance of understanding what is out there, what you're taking, when you should take it, and also just the importance of what we're doing at Which and why we're choosing to look into this area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason we're looking into it at Which is we understand how complex this market, this world is. Sophie and I work in the nutrition space, and it's confusing for us. There's so much misinformation out there, and really the aim of our project and these podcasts is to try and cut through that misinformation and give people the right information that they need to enable them to make informed choices.
And just as a final thought, I think it's really important to say that, I get some people coming to my clinic who would actually really benefit from supplementation, and I recommend supplements to them. But I also get people coming who are taking bagfuls of supplements every day. And that's a really dangerous place to put yourself in. So if you are someone who is clambering around trying to look for the answers and take all the things and try and live forever, whatever it is you're aiming for, do speak to a registered dietitian about what you should and shouldn't be taking, especially what you should and shouldn't be taking in combination in the context of your medical conditions.
Well, it's been such a fascinating series. I hope you found it useful, regardless of whether you are or aren't a member here at Which. I think we've given you some fantastic information over the last 6 episodes. Remember, if you do want access to our test results, looking into some of the supplements we've been talking about, then you can become a member. Just go to which.co.uk/podcast offer, and you can get 50% off an annual membership. But in the meantime, Shefalee, Sophie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings to an end another podcast from Which. There's loads more for you to read about everything we discussed today. Just head to the episode description for more useful everyday advice. There you'll also see an exclusive offer for podcast listeners like you to become a Which member for 50% off the usual price. And that gives you access to our product reviews, our app, one-to-one personalised buying advice, and every issue of Which magazine across the year. Plus, your membership helps us to make life simpler, fairer, and safer for everyone. If you'd like to know when we release a new episode, then make sure you press subscribe wherever you're listening, and that way you can be one of the first to listen. And for any questions, comments, or anything in between, then make sure to follow us on social media. We're at Which UK, or you can email us podcasts@which.co.uk. Goodbye. If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Which, then why not become a Which member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Which magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Which subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Which app, and the digital edition of Which magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Which service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Which subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Which or to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer. That's which.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Which annual subscription.